They say some vacations are meant to bring peace, but sometimes the place you choose to rest could be the very thing that haunts you forever. What was supposed to be a cozy getaway with my girlfriend turned into the most disturbing experience of our lives. I booked the Airbnb in late September, a week before my girlfriend Emma and I planned to spend a few days visiting her sister in a small town about 3 hours from where we lived. And I picked it because it was cheap, close enough to her sister's place, had good reviews, and looked cozy in the listing photos. An old 2-story house with a wraparound porch, warm yellow lighting in the living room, hardwood floors that gave it a kind of storybook feeling, and one small detail in the description that I didn't think much of at the time, which is a note telling guests that the basement storage room was off limits. I had stayed in places where the owners kept certain areas locked. It's pretty common for them to store personal belongings somewhere, so it barely registered as important. But when we pulled into the driveway, just before sunset on the first evening, the place looked a little more weathered than in the photos. And there was something about the fact that it stood alone with only one other house in sight a good distance away, surrounded by dark tree lines and a narrow road leading in that it made me think twice. The host, Alan, was waiting for us on the porch before we'd even gotten out of the car. He was tall but slightly hunched, maybe in his late 50s, with thin gray hair combed neatly over his head. He was dressed in a perfectly pressed flannel shirt tucked into his jeans. He smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. It made me think of Mr. Beast, a little too practiced. His eyes lingered on us just a bit too long when we shook hands. And though his voice was friendly enough, there was a subtle firmness to it when he began showing us around. He led us through the front door into a hallway that smelled faintly of dust and something sweet, almost like candle wax, though I didn't see any candles. The living room had a big couch facing an old television. The kitchen looked clean but dated. And when we went upstairs, the single bedroom had a large bed under a ceiling fan and a small dresser with a mirror. Then when he came back down, Alan stopped at a door near the kitchen and tapped a heavy padlock hanging from it. He told us in a more commanding tone that that door stayed locked, that it was a storage space, and that there was no reason for us to go down there for anything. He didn't smile this time. He just moved on to point out where the extra towels were in the bathroom before wishing us a pleasant stay and heading out the front door. After he left, Emma and I unpacked, made some tea, and sat outside on the porch for a while, listening to crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves in the trees. By the time we got into bed, the quiet was almost unnerving. No traffic, no distant voices, just pure silence. Sometime after midnight, I thought I heard a faint, dull thud from below us. I paused and listened for more, but it didn't come again. So I told myself it was probably the house settling. The next morning, we got breakfast in town, explored a few shops, and met up with Emma's sister for lunch. We stayed out until just after dark, then went back to the house to make dinner and watch a movie. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up to use the bathroom. As I headed back toward the bedroom, I froze halfway up the stairs when I heard a dragging sound from the basement, like something heavy being pulled across a rough floor. It lasted maybe 5 seconds, stopped, and then started again. My first thought was that maybe Alan had come back for something, but he had told us he wouldn't be around at all during our stay. I stood there listening until it stopped, then went into the bedroom and asked Emma in a whisper if she was awake. She said she was and that she heard it too. We stayed awake for another half hour, but the sound didn't return. The second night was worse. We'd spent the day hiking and were exhausted, but sometime around 2:30 a.m., the noises started again. Not dragging this time, but footsteps. 4 or 5 in a row, then a pause, then 3 more. Each pause lasting long enough to make me think that whoever or whatever it was listening. Emma whispered that she thought she heard breathing between the steps. My heart was pounding, but I didn't want to get up and risk making a noise. So we just lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling until morning. By the third morning, the atmosphere in the house felt different. We still went out and did touristy things, but whenever we came back, it was like a heaviness settled over the rooms. I decided to check the basement door during the day. It was still locked, but when I leaned closer, I thought I could smell something faint and unpleasant, like stale, damp air mixed with a hint of something sour. That night, the noises began earlier around midnight. First came a faint metallic clinking, like metal tapping against something hard. Then the footsteps again, going on and off for nearly an hour. Emma barely spoke to me before bed. The fourth night was the breaking point. While getting ready for bed, Emma stopped brushing her hair and asked me if the smoke detector above the bed looked strange. At first, I didn't see it, but when I stood on the bed to get a closer look, I saw a small, perfectly round black in the middle that was shinier than the surrounding plastic. A bad feeling hit me immediately. I grabbed a chair, unscrewed the detector, and inside was a small battery-operated camera with its green light on. Emma sat on the bed, pale and silent, while I searched the rest of the room and found another small lens poking through a hole in the wall near the dresser mirror, both aimed directly at the bed. That was the end of it. We shoved our stuff into our bags without bothering to fold anything, and we left the house without speaking to the host, driving to the nearest gas station to call the police. 2 officers met us there. We explained everything, the noises, the cameras, the locked basement, and they followed us back to the house. The front door was unlocked. Technically, we were still allowed in the place as we paid for 4 days. The police followed us inside and seized all the evidence, including the cameras, I assume, the memory cards, and any recording equipment they could find. They also took our statement in detail, asking if any strange events took place during our stay. That's when we mentioned hearing weird noises both nights from the basement. When we showed them the basement door, we were shocked to see that it was now wide open, but it was pitch black down there. We told them that this door was locked before, and that the host was very sketchy about not going down there. So, the officers went down the stairs to investigate. Moments later, we heard voices, raised voices. There was some kind of commotion going on down there, and it quickly became clear what was happening. The officers then called us down and asked if this was the host. And to our horror, it was Alan. He was apparently hiding in a closet in the basement. In this closet was a monitor, which we could only guess was being fed the footage from the basement. The police seized this as well. Alan was placed under arrest almost immediately, and he was charged criminally by the state for criminal trespass and invasion of privacy. We didn't have to testify in court or anything. The police just sent our statements to the prosecutor. I believe Airbnb basically bribed us with a voucher in hopes that we wouldn't share our bad experience. We took the voucher, obviously, but that hasn't stopped us from telling people about this horrific experience. It's really been something that's had a lasting effect on Emma and I. We don't trust rentals or Airbnbs anymore, and lately just stick to hotels. Would you have stayed another night in that house? Or left the very first time you heard the noises? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more true horror stories that will keep you up at night.